Hi, I'm Justine Burt. Welcome to my talk. I'm going to share my screen. I'm excited to share with you my presentation today about creating new green jobs, which starts at the design stage. A few years ago, I went to visit my mother in New Mexico, and I noticed her washing machine was from the 1960s. I asked her, "Mom, can I buy you a new washing machine?" And she said, "No, I know how to fix this one. I don't want a new one. You can't repair them with all the electronics." There's an opportunity to reduce the environmental impact, greenhouse gas emissions over the life cycle, and reduce waste when you design consumer products differently. Electronics, appliances, packaging, clothing. Um, there's a lot of opportunity to reduce our environmental impact. So just so you know where I'm coming from and the lens I use to look at this issue, I have a master's in environmental policy and a bachelor's degree in economics. I have 20 years of experience as a consultant on sustainability behavior change in the San Francisco Bay Area. 2 years ago, I published a book called The Great Pivot, Creating Meaningful Work to Build a Sustainable Future. So that's where I'm coming from. I think it's really exciting what the opportunities are to reduce the environmental impact when at the design phase, at the beginning, we think about an opportunity to improve a product's durability, reusability, repairability, upgradability, to use recycled content, to use regionally sourced materials. Um, we all have a smartphone, and generally iPhones are used for about 4 years. You really only want to get rid of your phone once either the screen's so cracked that you you think about replacing that, or generally your battery life doesn't last as long. They're made for about 500 charges down to 80%. So wouldn't it be nice if a lot of our electronics, if we could repair those instead of getting rid of them? So it would be nice if some products lasted longer. And then there are other products, well, packaging in particular, how long do you really need it to last? So often it's hours or even minutes. That plastic grocery bag, you don't need it to last for a century, you just need it to get your groceries home. That plastic cup at the fast food restaurant that you use, you don't need it to last for years, you just need it until you finish your drink. So plastics that then get out into the environment cause problems, as we know, either in waterways or on land for wildlife. So how long do you actually need product or packaging to last, and how do we better match how long you want it to last with how long it actually will last? These are some of the design criteria to think about. The European Union, just March 1st of this year, passed right to repair. So they want manufacturers of appliances to make their appliances so that they can be repaired for up to 10 years. They want to ensure that parts are available for up to 10 years, that manufacturers offer repair manuals, and that a consumer could use just regular conventional tools, not a specialized tool that only worked for that one screw. Um, so right to repair applies to refrigerators, washers, hair dryers, televisions, these kinds of consumer electronics. The French just passed a requirement that manufacturers provide a repairability index on their products, that they calculate a number and then post it on their products, given 5 criteria. How available is the technical information to aid in a consumer repairing the product? How easy is it to disassemble? If they glue the case together and you have to crack it open to be able to repair it, then that's not very easy to disassemble. How available are spare parts? What's the price of spare parts? And then there's a wildcard category for repair issues specific to that product. So we could be creating new green jobs if we design consumer products a little differently. We could be creating jobs to repair products, to salvage, to do reverse logistics, to upcycle, to recycle. And I've got several examples here for you. So there are repair cafes around the country. Um, the ones that are held are generally once a quarter, sometimes once a month, but the ones I've heard of are, 4 times a year. And they're run by volunteers. They have to make a bunch of calls right before the latest repair cafe to make sure that people who are really good at fixing things show up with their tools ready to go, and also publicize it to the community. Bring your vacuum cleaner, bring your broken fan, bring your broken iron, we'll fix it. And so this, if we had more repair cafes, we would need to hire at some point volunteer coordinators as they get more popular, as products get easier to repair and more people learn how to repair, they can teach others. Repair cafes are also wonderful community events. I mean, we're in COVID right now, but once the vaccines roll out and we start holding these, not virtually, but in person, again, it's a wonderful opportunity for intergenerational community building. So a 60-year-old who knows how to clean a vacuum cleaner can show a 10-year-old who's really interested in mechanical things how to do so. Repair cafes are one example of where we're going to need more paid volunteer coordinators, because it's a lot of work to do these, or it will be easier to repair things, and a lot of people don't want to deal with that, so it would be easier to go to a place that can repair consumer products for people. Second example, tool lending libraries. There are currently about 350 tool lending libraries in the United States. This is a picture of the city of Berkeley's tool lending library, which has been around since 1979, and the community loves it. They go to borrow construction tools, landscaping tools, kitchen tools, woodworking tools, they have all kinds of tools. Because every family shouldn't have to buy the same 100 tools that sit in their garage unused most of the time. Everyone doesn't need to buy their own jackhammer and tile cutting saw when it's high pressure washer when they only use it once in a while. So if we had more tool lending libraries, just in California, there are 482 cities and counties in California. And if everyone had 2 full-time people staffing the tool lending library, that alone would be about 1,000 jobs. So the more people learn how to repair things and feel confident doing it, and if a town or city could share its tools as a community resource, then we could create more jobs. Building deconstruction is another area for opportunity to reduce waste. Where I live, about 40% of what goes to the landfill is construction and demolition waste. We could be salvaging these materials instead of throwing them away. In 2016, the city of Portland developed a building deconstruction ordinance, and they gave away grants of $2,500 for a year for all deconstruction projects to cover the cost differential between demolition and deconstruction, because deconstruction creates a lot more jobs. They made the ordinance apply to any home that the homeowner wanted to tear down that was built before 1916, 1-6. And they said you have to deconstruct it instead of demolish it, because they wanted to see the solid oak wood flooring and the kitchen cabinets and the clawfoot tubs and the porcelain sinks and the wooden banisters. And honestly, the wood framing for older houses tends to be old growth wood, and so it's very valuable. And so what's interesting about deconstruction is that one person who works in this area told me that starting in the 1970s, construction companies started to glue a lot of parts together, and so that made deconstruction a lot harder. So any house that's built in the 1960s or before is a candidate for building deconstruction. Lots of potential jobs here. Here's a fun example. It's one of my favorite in the book, actually. A few years ago, the thrift store St. Vincent de Paul in Lane County, Oregon, which is right down the street from the University of Oregon. That'll be relevant in a minute. A few years ago, they hired a full-time fashion designer, Mitra Chester, and they charged her with trying to figure out, of all the donations they received, Is there a way to upcycle any of them? What can we do to try to sell more of what's being donated? And so she started taking her creative fashion mind and thinking, how could I be upcycling things? So leather love seats that came in with rips and stains in them, she started cutting those apart and making big tote bags. She noticed there were a lot of flannel shirts and hoodie sweatshirts being donated. So she cut the sleeves off of both and then started sewing the flannel sleeves onto the hoodie sweatshirts, put a batch of those out. The students at University of Oregon saw them and sold out. She made another batch, they sold out. She took the average daily sales for her store from $500 a day to $1,500 a day, more than covering the cost of her labor, and giving St. Vincent de Paul, which provides a safety net for the county, more funds with which to help families that are struggling. So there's just a river of clothing and housewares going into thrift stores, especially now with the pandemic. People are home, they're cleaning out their houses, thrift stores are overwhelmed. I wish fashion design majors, after they finish their degree, would go spend 6 months or a year working in a thrift store trying to help us upcycle a lot of these materials. Fishing nets could be recycled more than they are. It's very rare for them to be recycled. You've probably heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. 46% of the plastics in it, this swirling gyre of garbage in the Pacific between California and Hawaii, 46% is lost or abandoned fishing nets. 700,000, let's see, tons of abandoned fishing nets around the world that are snaring marine life. So there's an Italian company, Aquafil, that is working on the west coast of the United States with volunteer scuba divers to pull in some of these nylon 6 fishing nets, which most fishing nets are, and then paying fishermen to cut off various parts of the fishing nets and bail them into, fold them up and put them into 1,000-pound bags. And then they're shipped to Slovenia for recycling. They turn them back into pellets and then turn those into textiles, socks or swimwear or carpets. So there's a lot more we could be doing to redesign fishing gear, fishing nets, but there's also a lot we could be doing to recycle them into new products. We could be designing more packaging to have recycled content. Very little recycled content currently in packaging. This is paper packaging, and you can tell it has recycled content and can be recycled into other products. We could also make packaging, specifically secondary packaging, more reusable, durable. Secondary packaging tends to be the cardboard boxes on top of wooden pallets wrapped in plastic stretch wrap. And instead we could be using, top left is intermediate bulk containers. That's a picture from Ghirardelli chocolate, some of the ingredients they're receiving. Bottom left is reusable pallet wrap, which has 3 Velcro straps and then D-rings. A lot easier on people who work in the warehouse, easier on their backs, because instead of walking around with plastic wrap several times hunched over trying to wrap a pallet, they just use the 3 Velcro straps and the D-rings. Bottom middle is reusable totes, and bottom right is reusable racks. This company, Fine Light in Union City, California, has 2 suppliers. One's down in Los Angeles, the other one's nearby in the Central Valley. And trucks just every week go between the suppliers and Fine Light. So they use reusable racks. So there's a lot of opportunities to use reusable transportation packaging. And so in order to reduce the environmental impact of consumer products and packaging and extend the life of electronics, appliances, clothing, packaging, doing so would create jobs in reverse logistics for reusable transportation packaging, repair, recycling, and upcycling. The last story I want to leave you with is that a few months ago, I helped my father sell his house, get his house ready for sale and move into assisted living. and his dishwasher was broken. We called the repair company, and they came out to look at it and said, "Oh, I'd love to fix it for you, but there's one part that you need, and KitchenAid no longer makes it. So would you like to buy a new one?" So if that part had been available, we could have fixed the dishwasher, which was only 15 years old. I wish appliances lasted longer and you could get parts for them. So it just shows how important it is to be able to design for repairability, design for the environment, design for recycling, design for durability. And I thank you for your time.